What's up, YouTube? It's the one and only Legend of Winning, aka Low, and I'm back with another episode of the NBA preview. Now, for those out there who missed the last episode, as always, I will have an annotation in the top right hand corner, link in the description, and if you watch the video in its entirety, not only will I have an annotation to the last episode, but also an annotation to the playlist, so you can binge watch all the episodes until where we are right now. Now, today's video, we are talking about the Toronto Raptors, the team that has been, I guess, a little bit above average, especially when it comes to Eastern Conference playoff teams over the past several seasons. Now, the Toronto Raptors, a fairly new franchise in the NBA, has had a lot of success over the past couple of seasons with the reemergence of Kyle Lowry in his career and the developing play of DeMar DeRozan. They have created a duo amongst one another in the backcourt that has really and truly been more successful than I think a lot of people have expected, consistently being a 50-win team, along with being one of the best defensive teams and offensive teams in the NBA over the last 3 to 4 years, which I must admit has been really fun watching them on and off the court over the past couple of years, which actually leads us to our summer of social media for our clip of the day.
Thank you, appreciate it. First off, I want to thank the Raptors organization, for giving me the opportunity to come back to a place I call home. It's been a great 5 years and continuing on to the next, 3 years.
Now, shout out to my man Kyle Lowry for getting that bag. And I'm not going to lie, part of me was like, I don't necessarily know if he's going to stay. I know now, looking back at it, hindsight is 2020, and it's obvious he was going to stay with DeMar DeRozan, who, even though I said this before about Blake and DeAndre, DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry, they are definitely the cutest couple in the NBA right now. By far the most cutest couple in the NBA. But the reason why I was questioning the idea of him staying with the Toronto Raptors is simply because, as we all know, over the last couple of months, there have been multiple teams in the NBA who have been adding to their roster, and a couple of teams kind of popped up out of the blue, such as the Minnesota Timberwolves, who had the ability to sign him, and actually, and in my opinion, this is just my opinion, put Kyle Lowry in a better situation when it comes to just pure winning. Financially, he definitely would have taken a step back, but the gap in between the millions upon millions of dollars that some of these NBA players are already making might not have been that huge of a difference. But Kyle Lowry decided to stay in Toronto, finish out this process, and kudos to him. Shout out to my Toronto Raptors fans. Also, shout out to Kyle Lowry as well, because the man lost some weight also. So you got the bag, your pockets got fat, but you slimmed down. So that's always a very productive off season. But because of the amount of money that they gave to Kyle Lowry, it may have some repercussions with the rest of the lineup, which thus transitions us to our contracts and our depth chart. So first, looking at the contracts, like I said before, Kyle Lowry signed that 3-year, $90 million contract. Serge Ibaka is staying on the team after being traded mid-season with a 3-year, $64 million contract. Then we have CJ Miles on a 3-year, $25 million contract. And then KJ McDaniels on a 1-year deal. From my understanding, there's no coincidence to why all of them signed 3-year deals, because in 3 years' time, if I'm not mistaken, DeMar DeRozan, his contract will be up, so they're just making space down the road to sign DeMar DeRozan and keep him on the team. Now, when it comes to our overpaid players, I put Kyle Lowry making $28.7 million is a bit much. I thoroughly understand why they should pay him, though, because he has been part of the most success that the franchise has seen, and obviously you don't break up that duo in the backcourt with him and DeRozan. But to some people, and I thoroughly understand, especially because of his age, he's already 31, will be 32 by the end of the season, $28 million is a bit excessive for a player who at best is an all-star. Then when it comes to our expiring contracts, Lucas Nogueira, Bruno Caboclo, Fred VanVleet, and I have Norman Powell, but actually I'm just not remembering, they did sign Norman Powell to an extension, so he's no longer an expiring contract, so that's good for them moving forward, because as we look at this depth chart, you will clearly see the depth on this team has definitely taken a massive hit over the past couple of months. When we look at our starters, we have Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan in the backcourt, CJ Miles at the 3, Serge Ibaka and Valanciunas rounding up that 4 and 5. Coming off the bench, Darrell Wright, Norman Powell. Then it gets really shaky. KJ McDaniels, who's been bouncing around the NBA for quite some time. Then we have OG Anunoby. Hopefully he'll be able to come in, give him some quality minutes, and hopefully the injuries don't, reoccur and doesn't become a massive problem throughout his career, because OG Anunoby did have a pretty solid preseason game not too long ago. And then the rest of the players, it's getting real suspect. So we have Siakam, who was okay at times. He was a starter with some games, especially because they were dealing with injuries at the power forward position, but he didn't necessarily show me enough to believe that he's going to be a consistent bench player. And then when it comes to our fives, it gets even worse. Pirtle, I mean, I've seen a little bit out of him, but not enough. He's still young though. And then we have Nogueira. Again, I've seen a little bit out of him, but not enough for me to say that I feel comfortable saying that those are quality backup players. So when we look at their bench, it's nowhere near as good as it used to be. Like I stated before, huge losses with Corey Joe, T. Ross, Patrick Patterson, and I don't necessarily know if any of these players are going to be able to contribute consistently, especially in that front court. And maybe you have to go guard heavy every now and then and play a little smaller on the perimeter, but I really don't see too much productivity coming out of that front court coming off the bench. Hopefully you get a little bit more out of Serge Ibaka. Now you got him for a full season. Valanciunas, I've heard rumors that he's supposed to be traded. Hopefully that will be able to aid them in the process of adding some more pieces on their bench. And then you got CJ Miles, who's a solid starter. But at the end of the day, as we all know, this all comes down to Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan. And that's the reason why they are our spotlight players of the day. Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan have shared a backcourt with one another for the past 5 years with the Toronto Raptors, and they have brought the most success to the franchise in its history, which is great if you are a Toronto Raptors fan, because outside of a year or two with Vince Carter, you really haven't seen that much success whatsoever. A couple of busts here and there, especially when it comes to Bargnani, but now you've kind of found yourself in a situation where you can consistently expect somewhere around the high 40s to a 50 win mark pretty consistently, which is something that is fairly rare in the Eastern Conference. Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan are coming off of great seasons last year. Kyle Lowry had a career high in points and efficiency, scoring 22 points on a night-to-night basis, 46% from the field, 41 from behind the arc, 7 assists, nearly 5 rebounds, and a steal and a half. But unfortunately for Kyle Lowry and the Toronto Raptors, he was only able to stay on the court for 60 games, which is definitely a huge red flag moving forward as he is already in his 30s. Then when it comes to DeMar DeRozan, he had a phenomenal season last year, and quite honestly, I just don't understand why people still hate on him. And I understand he doesn't shoot threes, but if you're able to have a career high in points, in which he did last year, averaging 27 points per game, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and still shoot pretty good from the field, 46, almost 47% from the field. Again, I understand he's not a three-point marksman, but I think there are just certain things that you should be able to overlook. Now, the one thing that I definitely will not overlook is their poor performance in the playoffs. I have never in my life seen two players who play so well with one another turn around, and it's almost as if they just fell off the face of the earth and just don't know how to play basketball in the postseason. It's amazing to me. I don't know if it's because the offense is too predictable, which is something that I've constantly criticized their offense and their head coach, but we won't get too much into that. But when it comes down to the playoffs, it is just amazing to me. The drop-off is so significant that you wouldn't even guess that these players will be able to post up numbers the way that they are. Both of them have a hard time staying efficient during the postseason. Neither one of them shoot at a high volume, so I don't understand why this is such a problem. But DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry pretty consistently over the past couple of seasons have always shot under 40% from the field, which I just don't understand. And DeMar DeRozan, again, I like him, but we can't deny that he's not that great of a defender. And then when it comes to Kyle Lowry, as good a defender that he is, at 6 feet tall, is only so much that you can do. And obviously as he gets older, his skills on the defensive end will slowly deteriorate, so he's definitely not going to be able to play at an elite level on the defensive end, which basically kind of leads to this big moment that we're expecting for the Toronto Raptors within the next year or two, and that is for them to take the next step. Now, during the regular season, I've seen it. Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan, like I just said, had the best statistical season throughout their entire careers last year, and it definitely seems as if they're gelling really, really well. But they have the inability to carry that over to the postseason when it actually counts and when it matters. Now, will they be able to do that this year? Highly doubted, but that just brings us to our Twitter question of the day. Shout out to my man Chef Ramy, and his question is, what kind of additions other than stars or key players do the Raptors need to get them over the hump? Now, the reason why this is such a great question is because even though, yes, the Toronto Raptors, and I'll give them all the praises and the kudos in the world, shout out to the Raptors because they have been a very consistent team over the past couple of years, which is something that's extremely hard to find in the Eastern Conference. So shout out to you all, high 40 to 50 win team, and that's cool. But when it all comes down to it, you got to get better so you can be a title contender. And so some people, especially myself, and also shout out to Agent as well, as he is a Raptors fan, we are all concerned about the Toronto Raptors and when they will be able to take the next step. Now, from my opinion, and also Agent has shared this as well with me, especially when he's raging, the lack of ball movement on this team is really concerning. Now, I'm not saying that Dwayne Casey has to lose his job, but I would like to see him utilize other players on the floor, because the high pick and roll with Kyle Lowry and the heavy wing isolation with DeMar DeRozan, I just don't think that's cutting it. If you look over the past 3 years, the Toronto Raptors have been at best average, but majority of the time well below average when it comes to passes made per game and assists per game for the entire team. And it's so concerning because they have really solid high IQ players, in my opinion. Norman Powell, Serge Ibaka, Valanciunas. Even back when they had DeMar Carroll, he was really good passing the ball back in Atlanta. I saw it firsthand. So personally, just looking at what I'm looking at, I feel as if Dwayne Casey should utilize other players on the team and have them pass the ball around a little bit more. Now, with that being said though, and I don't want to put too much blame on Dwayne Casey, at the end of the day, and when it all boils down to it, it comes down to Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan. Let me just be clear about that. Dwayne Casey, I definitely suggest for him to change his playing style, get a little bit more ball movement. But Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan, they have to play better in the playoffs, and that's just it. But please let me know what you think about Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan, Toronto Raptors in the comment section below. Also, let me know what you think about this series, and make sure you hit the subscribe button, notification bell to be updated when I upload these videos, and hit the thumbs up. With that being said, people, I will see you all tomorrow. Peace.